fadoodle, 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 doodle, doodle. The secret ingredient is love. Hey, Maudit.
Hey, Heather.
Here we are, episode 2
Of the podcast.
Yeah. So what are we going to talk about?
Well, I think we're going to at least partially talk about garlic and sapphires.
Garlic and sapphires.
It's a pretty good name for a book, huh?
It is a pretty good name for a book. Yeah, so I was actually reading this book. It's by, and I'll probably say her last name wrong, so I apologize in advance, Ruth Reichel, who was at one point in time the food critic for the New York Times. And she's written, I just made up a new word.
As you do.
I do it often, don't I? She's written quite a few books, actually. And Garlic and Sapphire is one of her earlier books, Garlic and Sapphires. So I was reading it, and then you saw me reading it and asked some questions about it, and then we both decided to read it and talk about it.
Yeah. Yep. And it kind of fits into our theme of food and the culture around it and, you know, how it affects people and... Yeah.
So one of the things that I found that I liked the most about this book was the descriptions of food when she was trying food and her experience of tasting food.
Yeah.
I found her to be very descriptive, and I also found her to be similar to me in my love and experience of eating food.
Yeah. Yep. I also, it felt like a little bit nostalgic to me from like an earlier time because she's writing about being a food critic back in, what is it, the 80s?
I believe so, yeah. It was definitely a while ago. This is...
Yeah. So there's all sorts of references that feel sort of like time capsules in it.
Yep. So one of the other things I really enjoyed about this book was the fact that she would dress in disguise.
Yeah, so that was definitely the most compelling part of it to me. So in order to go to these restaurants undetected, she would dress up in very elaborate disguises, wigs, full face makeup, you know, glasses, clothes that would change how she walked and her posture. And yeah, she like really went hard into the disguises. So it's kind of like a food critic / spy.
Well, and it talks too about how like these kind of personalities she took on. Babis.
She's ready for a nap.
Babis is ready to take a little nap. These personalities that she took on really helped her learn more about herself, right? Because there was one that was very much like her mother.
Yeah. She referred to one of them as being her best self and the other one as being her worst self. So it kind of allowed her to tap into different parts of herself through these different characters that she created, which is very theatrical.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I never tap into characters, ever.
Yeah, so it was a pretty...
She just glossed right over that. She's like, yeah, so it was a pretty...
pretty relatable in that way is what I was going to say, but yeah, it's...
You know, I thought of something fun as I just finished reading the book this morning. I was sitting here thinking, wouldn't it be fun to, like, try and describe, like, something we've recently... So I had 2 experiences recently where I've been out and about and tried something. One was at the Apple place.
Yeah.
In the spinach and cheese croissant.
Mm-hmm.
That. And then the other... Oh, I was just thinking of it. What was it that I wanted to try and describe that I had recently? So I wanted to think about trying to describe the food that I ate in the same way or in a similar vein as she did.
Okay.
Is there something you could describe like that?
I think a practice that could make that doable is to, I guess when you're eating, just slow everything down and make like go through it like it's a sensory experience.
So can we
where
do
you're
that
being
right
mindful.
now? Can we get you a donut to bite?
Oh my god. Get my coffee. Where is it?
I don't know. Where is your coffee?
So do you want me to just like try something random and
describe it? Yeah.
I think I should be blindfolded for this. You should just get some random thing out of the.
She wasn't blindfolded.
No, I mean. No, she wasn't.
I mean, we could. Do you want? Is this like a fantasy to be blindfolded and fed food?
Oh my god, this is taking a turn.
Well, you know.
No, I think just for the surprise element of like, you know, describe this thing that you don't necessarily have other ways to.
I feel I should have been more prepared.
Yeah, this is feeling very rambly to me.
Well, I was thinking like when I brought it up that we could like just do it based upon something we'd already eaten, not something like, you know, how when she's writing the reviews, she's thinking back. She's not necessarily eating it right in the moment, but she's describing her experience.
But when she's at the restaurants critiquing stuff, she's being very analytical about kind of deducing what is, you know, what's in it, how it's cooked, you know, what flavors. She's trying to name all the spices that she's experiencing, and she does say that this is very different from when she's just eating with friends and family, and how she isn't naturally a critic, but she has to kind of put it on in the moment. So
I'm gonna try.
I think you can be, you know, very critical and analytical of what you eat, but you don't have to be, and there's benefits to both.
I think that's true. I was more thinking of just describing what I like, just the description of like my experience of it. Not analytical, not trying to break it down, but more like, here I go, people. I'm taking a sip of coffee.
Okay.
Here we go. As the coffee with chicory slid across my tongue.
Oh, goodness. Yes,
You know what I think? She did those kind of descriptions. As the coffee with chicory, I drink Cafe Du Monde coffee. So the coffee with chicory slid across my tongue and hit the back of my palate. I experienced a sensation of deep gratitude and pleasure. The earthiness of the chicory blending. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
You want to try? Here, take a sip.
Okay. I feel like the bitterness of the coffee kind of raises through your palate into your nose and then lingers in a sort of, I don't know, sharp way, as if the coffee is physically trying to wake you up by, I don't know.
Wow, wow.
I don't know.
That was very good.
Okay.
You went places.
Okay.
You went places I didn't go. The acidity rises into my nose and the sounds of
there
the
actually
swell.
are different like categories of like tasters. Like there's a way to measure. It's done by like the density of your taste buds, and I did this in college, but essentially, yeah, there's this test that you can do where you put a reinforcement, like for paper, on your tongue, and the millimeters of however wide that is like the measurement of how many taste buds are in that space. So the professor gave us like a little dab of blue food coloring to like dye our tongue because it makes it easier to spot the taste buds, and then we put a reinforcement on our tongue, and we counted how many taste buds were in that spot.
So do you think like if someone has more taste buds, like that they experience taste differently? Like,
yeah, okay, so the different categories are taster, non-taster, and super taster.
I think I'm a super taster.
So super tasters tend to be able to taste like way more in their food, but they also tend to be like a little bit overwhelmed by that, and so they tend to not like super rich things and not like super flavorful things because
I'm not a super taster.
Okay, so you'd think that somebody that like really enjoys food is a super taster, but sometimes they actually are just the tasters or the non-tasters. I feel like non-tasters kind of like a poor description because it doesn't mean that they can't taste. It just means that they have like less density of taste buds. And then there's different areas of your tongue that pick up different flavors more than others, like sweet and salty and bitter all kind of register in different parts of your mouth.
I'm curious as to, and I know there must be research and studies done on this, like the experiences of people related to pleasure with eating.
Yeah.
Like what causes one person to be someone who, you know, experiences a lot of pleasure from food or the act of eating or tasting, and somebody else not so much. You know, I think it's probably a variety of factors or a multitude of factors coming together, but there are definitely people I've met who are not like foodie people, who don't really have that. I mean, I'm a foodie person. Like, I like food and I like to find new food and try food, and I appreciate really good food and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, eating is a sensory experience, so I think people, you know, have different senses that they might be more inclined to want to experience pleasure through, and there's different. What is that face for?
That was the thoughts that I'm not supposed to say
okay.
out loud. Those were my inside thoughts being seen on my outside face. Yep.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there's there's a time and place for different things, right? So
appropriateness is important, right?
Right, yeah. So
be appropriate with your pleasures. Or not.
All of a sudden this podcast took on a very different vibe.
It's Yep. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a conversation, right? Like,
yeah. The thing that I found really interesting about Garlic and Sapphires is that she kind of brought together a what I would consider relatable experience to a world that I don't have the faintest notion about, which would be like the high-end restaurant scene in New York City. And she talks about, how the experience is different if for people that are perceived as being like high status and wealthy and famous, and deserving of this type of treatment, and the lay person that maybe saved up for months or years to be able to go on this special date where they are served fancy food, and how they sometimes get treated really poorly. And she discovered this through the disguises that she wore and how people perceived her. That was, and she talks about how that was the angle that she took as a food writer, and how it was both really upsetting to some people and also really validating to others that were like, yes, this is our experience. Like we've aren't treated the same as the rich and wealthy, of course, obviously. It kind of, I guess, made me reflect on what? You look like you really want to say something.
No. I was just watching our producer over there tell me to silence my phone.
Oh, okay.
Ringer on the side.
The little button on the side that turns red. Yeah.
All right. Technology is my thing.
Technology.
One of the things I found really interesting that she also talked about was at this point in time when the book was written, like there was a certain type of restaurant that the New York Times focused on, right? Like she really, because she
brought in a lot of ethnic foods that were not considered high end and treated them as if they were.
Right.
And that's just blatant racism that was causing this rich and wealthy scene to not see Chinese food as something that could be upscale and worth the same
and
kind of praise.
Like I feel like there was definitely not the exposure before, or anyone talking about it in the same way, at least that I'm aware of. But she definitely had gone and had other experiences where she traveled the country in the world and came back with some knowledge already, and so she wanted to go to those little places and Korean restaurants and Thai restaurants and all those other ones that weren't being visited, and so brought that into a mainstream kind of through writing about it at the Times. And you're absolutely right. This is not a world that I have any familiarity with. I don't actually read the food reviews from the New York Times because they don't feel relevant to me. Right.
And a lot of the food that she talked about over and over again felt like, oh, another pate. Okay. Like, how exciting. I don't know. That, I guess, doesn't appeal to me that much.
I love pate. I mean, it doesn't appeal to me to like... Okay, here was my experience of pate. I kind of had that it was in my head like this food that was better than my station, right? In life. So I hadn't really tried it. I also hadn't had the opportunity to be exposed to it because I just hadn't been around that kind of food. And then I tried it.
Oh, yeah? See, I just think of the mistreatment of geese.
All right, that's a whole nother podcast we can go down, because I think there's the mistreatment of almost every animal in a food industry, unless you're doing a certain practice of organic and local and
knowing your farm and everything. Yeah.
Yep. That's a whole nother bigger podcast right there. Whew.
Yeah.
That's several podcasts.
So the thing that I really appreciated about her telling of this is that it made both the relatable and the outlandishly unrelatable feel like something that you can navigate as her reader. And whenever I travel, and which hasn't been a whole lot lately, the pandemic and a baby and all, but during my like college years where I got to travel a little bit, I always like to kind of I joked with my sister that I would declare like majors for every country or city I went to. And the major would be like, oh, in this city, I'm going to study the textiles. And in this city, I'm going to study the architecture. And even if it was just like a day in one museum, or like a quick appreciation of that one thing. It didn't have to be like a super in-depth one, but like each place or city I wanted to have like one thing that I really focused on. And the one thing that I focused on, it was, well, a few things. It was always food. Like everywhere I went, I was like, one of the majors has to be food.
Oh, because that's like such.
It's how you relate to the people. It's how you relate to their
culture.
how they gather and celebrate, and yeah. So I think anywhere you go, taking in like a big healthy dose of appreciation of the food and the people cooking it.
Don't just eat in the tourist trap spots, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of got to go off the beaten path and kind of be willing to like find out where the locals eat.
Right.
Yeah.
You want some like old abuela to make you something that she's made her family, and yeah. So this book was a little bit like that, but specifically with all the little microcosms in New York City, and
the other thing she did, the other thing she did that I really liked is she offered us some recipes, right? Because she's a cook. Yeah. She started as a chef, like studying food in that capacity, and so in her the recipes she offers are not super high tech. Like, you can make them, and that I found appealing. That there was, she would give like an anecdotal story about something, and then there would be this recipe followed by this recipe that she had either adapted or that related to the story. And
like the cake that her son made. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Garlic and Sapphires. I am going to read some more of her other books. I am curious to.
Yeah. Which one are you going to do next?
I'm not sure. I have a couple actually on.
Okay.
I'm a reader, people. So like, I have an actual library and I have an audio library, and so I'm not quite sure. Truthfully, I have a Stephen King book I'm going to read before I read another food book, though. I'm also a Stephen King fan.
It's that time of year.
It's that time of year. Well, his new book just came out.
Oh, good.
Fairy Tale. So I'm wanting to read that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have another podcast that I like listen to religiously, and one of the hosts just published her first book, and I'm like, ooh, I think
that's cool.
I think I might have to get my hands on
what kind of podcast?
The Butcher and the Wren. It's like a true crime, sort of supernatural, spooky podcast. It's called Morbid. And I just find the hosts to be like really endearing. And
do you think people will find us endearing?
Oh goodness, I think they might find us a lot of things. Hopefully endearing is one of them.
What are the other things they might find us? Curious minds want to know.
Well, I'm gonna say kooky.
You think we're kooky?
I think kooky. Yeah, but
a new food show I just watched too.
Yeah,
Bear. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you haven't seen Bear, if you're a food person,
The Bear.
Thank you. If you're a food person, it's a great show. And if you're not a food person, it's still an amazing show. I just found all of its components, the writing, everything about it was fabulous, and I'm really looking forward to season 2. There was part of me that almost wanted it to end with season 1 because I thought it was so good that like I don't want them to mess it up. Because sometimes they go too, like, you take a good thing and you go too far with it, but this was really, really good. So if you get a chance, check it out. The Bear. I think it's on Hulu. It's on Hulu. Yeah.
I haven't seen this one yet.
It's so good.
Cool.
Yep. Well,
nice.
I feel like that's what I have to offer today. How about you? Anything?
Yeah. Is there anything? I feel like I had a lot of thoughts about Garlic and Sapphires, and I don't know. I think
Well, you because you listened to it on audio, and I read the book, and you said there was an interview at the end, which is not in the book.
Yeah.
How was that? Was that?
It was good. I'm gonna be really honest and say that I was also wrangling a 1-year-old when I was listening to it, and I am not sure I was listening carefully enough in order to adequately give a
1-year-old wrangling takes some effort and skill and energy.
Yeah, and I feel like my brain works a little bit like a sieve in those moments, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I wonder what we'll come up with to talk about. We've got 2 weeks because next week we film a new episode.
Yeah.
What are we making next time?
I think we are making the butternut squash
Goya. I mean,
dumplings.
No, they're not dumplings.
There's some kind of dumpling.
We're making something.
Yeah, it's gonna have butternut squash and brie in it, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, it has a lot of
some pasta around the outside.
Pot stickers. Were they
maybe.
butternut squash and Gouda pot stickers?
That's it. Butternut squash and butternut squash.
Scotch.
And Gouda pot stickers.
Excellent. Yeah. That sounds pretty yummy. That sounds very autumnal, and I'm about it right now. It is finally cool outside. The leaves haven't really started turning yet, but they will. And I just got like an apple crisp oat milk latte from Starbucks this morning. Something, yeah, it's one of their seasonal flavors. And you know what? It's pretty good. I like it.
I'm one of those traditionalists. Give me regular old
Give
coffee
me all
with
the
some
funky
cream.
coffees. Yeah, but no, this took like pumpkin spice, but like somehow made it like crisper. It was good.
Yeah,
I like it.
I kind of rail against it's fall and let's make everything pumpkin flavor.
Yeah, you know.
There's apple too.
Apple. Yeah, I'm really about the apple.
I
and
love
apple cider.
pumpkin. I love apple. I just don't want it
I
in
love
my coffee.
pumpkin carving. Can
I
we
want
do some
coffee in
pumpkin
my
carving?
coffee. Yeah, we can pumpkin
Yeah, I
carve.
want to sit on the porch and carve pumpkins.
Maybe we can make a short about it.
Oh my gosh, and then roast all the pumpkin seeds. Delicious stuff.
All right. We still have those fun, funky marshmallows you guys found.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So can we just talk about that really quick?
Okay.
Sammy and I went grocery shopping the other day just to pick up a few odds and ends. And
if you don't know who Sammy is, she's the one who does everything behind the scenes.
She's
None of this would be possible
overlord.
without a Sammy.
Sammy's our overlord.
She's our evil overlord.
So I was shopping with the overlord, and we got really distracted by the marshmallow aisle. And I know that you're thinking that, like, no, grocery stores don't have marshmallow aisles. Yes, they do. This one had a whole aisle full of marshmallows, and they were all different flavors and shapes and colors. There was, like, unicorn poop. I mean, it was wild. So I was trying to, like, rein myself in and stay on a budget. So I only got 3 different flavors of marshmallow. But I have this plan that we should do some marshmallow testing around the fire. And record it, so you get the audio of like the little fire and the little
ASMR.
crackles. Yeah, but then we just get to nom some marshmallows. Yes.
Yeah, we got a new fancy mic.
It's like is it a shotgun mic? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Yep, it is.
for filming.
That's what the overlord calls it, and and it works really well, and it looks real fancy.
Yeah, and then we're lucky we also have a consultant in the form of Pride who like consults on sound issues, and
Yes.
so we have our overlord and our consultant.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Heather got some really cute dresses to wear for filming.
That's
and,
right.
And I still am sort of living out of a suitcase, so I will look like a scrub bub. But
Wow, you looked so cute in the last episode.
that's because I was wearing a cute apron that my really cool mother-in-law got me for Christmas one year.
I should meet her.
Yeah, she's pretty great.
Awesome.
All right.
All right, well,
So, marshmallows, folks.
marshmallows, folks. Reading about cooking, folks.
Yeah.
Doing some taste testing. You know, here's a
Be in
little
the moment.
recommendation to like
Just,
leave you
yeah.
with. Be in the moment,
Yeah.
and the next time you sit down to a meal,
Describe it to yourself, just for
Yeah.
the fun of it.
Or the
Feel like
person
a
sitting next
food
to you.
critic. Or get really, really dressed up and go to a fancy restaurant and, I don't know.
get dressed up as someone who you're not. Right? Like, have fun.
Yeah.
Put on some
But
somebody else's.
I would say,
persona.
like, I would prefer if that person was like a kind, benevolent soul, as opposed to some of the characters she dressed up as, which just seemed really mean.
Well, I don't do well being mean in general.
No, I would get so much anxiety if I had to like pretend to be mean to
You
people,
would.
especially service workers. Oh my God, I would die.
God, I can't
I
be
could
mean
never
to
do
service
that. I
workers.
would like secretly be handing them like money under the table, being like, "I'm so sorry for being rude to you."
Yeah, well, even when when service isn't great, I can't. Being rude is just not an option.
Here's a question: have you ever sent something back at a restaurant?
I have actually sent something back, and not in a mean way, but like it just wasn't edible the way it was, and
Yeah.
so it wasn't to be mean or to. So I can't be mean, but I also
You're good at being assertive. Like you can stand
like,
up for yourself. Absolutely.
There's a way of doing things, I believe, that doesn't have to be mean, but is also like, you know, maneuvering your way in the world. Like you don't want to pay for things that are subpar. It doesn't mean you need to be mean about it, but it also doesn't mean you have to accept something in that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I there's that like slogan that's like something about accepting no bullshit, but being gentle, but I don't know. It's like it's like a live, laugh, love sign. It's real generic like quote to live by, but it's
A real generic quote. And now,
and that's why I can't remember it.
generic
But
quote
it's
to live
something
by.
about like, you know.
Chugi.
What?
Sorry.
That was the word that you were trying to think of? Okay, educate us, Sammy. Bring it on.
All right, Sammy.
Chugi.
Get close to the mic as you tell us.
I've learned that there is a word for a phenomenon that I didn't realize there was a word for. It's Chugi, and it's sort of like the kind of cringy millennial live laugh love sort of vibes.
It's like the boho aesthetic without any of the bohemian energy behind it.
I hate that.
That is part of it. Yeah.
My beige wall.
Yeah, with
It's
your
this isn't a house, it's a home. That's
yeah. the sign. I was like, we have tons of these, but signs that say things in the kitchen, like kitchen,
home.
This kitchen is for dancing, which ours legit is. But
Ours
if
is.
you have to put a sign up, I have a feeling you're not dancing that much in the kitchen. I don't know.
Just put the music on.
I
folks.
feel like I'm being judgy right now. I need to rein it in. But yeah. Again, I'm being.
Chugi.
Okay, Chugi. Okay, we looked up the definition here. Chugi is an American neologism coined in 2013 as a pejorative description of lifestyle trends associated with the early 2010s and millennials. Wow.
Yes, that's exactly
This
what
aesthetic
it is.
has been described as the opposite of trendy or trying too hard.
It was trendy in 2013. That kind
The
of
term
stuff.
has been used positively by some who identify with the aesthetic.
Huh.
Interesting.
It's very much like 2013, millennial
Okay, so the
vibes.
little, if you click on
Yeah.
the little image icon next to it, it shows.
Yes.
Oh my god!
That is
Oh my
exactly
god!
what it
Okay,
is.
so it shows UGG boots, which brings me right back to college. It brings the
Live, laugh, love sign.
yeah.
Those juicies do not belong in this picture.
Okay, so it's the what do you even call that material? Like the velour jumpsuit with the juicy sign on the bum.
That I don't think that belongs. in
Okay,
there.
that's just coming back in.
Yeah, exactly. That's
But that is Chugi for sure.
but it's not
It's just-
2013 vibes. It's
it's
early
earlier.
2000s.
It's earlier than that. Okay, and
Yeah.
then the mug that says "girl boss."
I don't want to be a girl boss. I want to be a woman boss.
Just be a boss.
Just be a
Just be a
boss.
boss.
Thank
boss.
you.
Why do you have
Okay,
to
so
separate it?
They don't do
This-
boy boss.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
exactly.
Okay, so this brings us into the
We're-
whole
now
theories
we're-
of feminism and
Oh, I have so
you-
much to say about
Oh, I think
About
Sammy should
having-
just be on the podcast.
Sammy,
with
you
us.
should. Overlord, please join us. Yeah. So, as the resident millennial in this conversation,
You are. I'm a Generation Xer. What are you?
Gen Z.
You're Gen Z. I'm
so
Gen X.
I'm definitely a millennial, and an elder millennial, if you will. This means I'm one of the cool ones.
wow.
One of the originals. A founder of the millennium. But oh my god, I was like, am I guilty of some of this stuff? I'm not any of
Did you
these.
have Uggs?
No.
Okay.
But
I had
my
Uggs as a
sister
kid.
did. I used to make fun of the sorority girls that dressed like that because
I'm gonna bring it back to the pumpkin thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have this thing of like,
pumpkin spice.
yeah.
Oh yes, that's another thing.
Okay,
Pumpkin
yeah,
spice
it's-
latte.
This is like the pumpkin spice latte, wearing the Uggs and the yoga pants. Like, it's a thing.
Are these little lip balms, Chugi? Like the
the
little,
US? The US? No.
Am I being chuggy?
No.
I mean,
No.
I those are just really fun to hold. I thought they smelled.
And that, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that picture of the dorm room with the tapestry, I know a college student now that's dorm room looks like that.
So
Yeah,
does that mean it's
but
not
there's
chuggy because they're
different-
doing it now?
It depends on how you.
It depends on if you're a millennial or a
depends-
Gen Z or doing it.
No, it depends
Yeah,
on how you execute it.
Okay.
You have to execute it a certain way, or else it'll look very
So
live, laugh, love.
is this executed the right way in order for it to be legit trendy, or is this
that is
cringy?
very 2013.
Why? What about
sort
it
of
is? Is
cringy
it because of
It's
the
because
signs and the little
all
dream
the things
catcher?
on the wall, all the bedding, the pillows.
Is it because it's trying too hard?
No, it's just giving me. It's not trying too hard. It's I don't even know how to describe this feeling, but it's like what I would maybe no. No, I personally wouldn't.
You're trying
in
to figure out how to say
2013
this without offending me.
No.
No. Okay.
There's a way where if people put on you can put a tapestry like that if it's the vibes of the rest of the room are different,
So it has to be
talking about?
eclectic, where there's
It's more of a sort of hippie vibe.
Yeah.
But that's not a very hippie vibe. That's a very not hippie vibe.
okay,
You know what I mean?
Interesting. Okay, so this is gonna be our next challenge though.
Our doorbell's about to ring.
Oh, that's
because our service delivery person's here.
Oh, that's exciting. What are we getting?
they're fixing our fridge.
Oh, we got to get off this podcast.
All right.
Okay.
We're wrapping up
This
the
has
podcast.
been fun.
Padoodle.
All right,
Bye.
padoodle.
Padoodle,
Bye.
padoodle, padoodle.
Mwah.
Bye.